Well, hello. Welcome to the show. What's up? It's me. Did you know that 57% of people believe in ghosts? 57. 5, 7. 5, 7. And I just went down this rabbit hole, just so you know, of places that will never sell. Mansions so cheap, no matter what, they can't get them to sell at all. And I don't know if, maybe you would want to be a part of buying one and fixing it up. Like in Syracuse, New York, there is a house. It's 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It's $1,000. You can buy it. Exteriorly, it looks great. On the inside, however, it's a disaster. In Syracuse, what's up? In Syracuse, New York has an average price for a home for $153,000. So you're going to put probably just as much, if not more, into that. So if you want to buy a house for $1,000, you can do that in Syracuse, New York. That's what we're talking about. What's up, everybody? Happy New Year, everybody. And then there's a house in Clifton, Tennessee, just so you know. It's supposedly not haunted. Well, it's not haunted. So it says. They said on the actual for sale sign, it says not haunted. No reason is understood as to why. I don't know about you, but I don't want to live into a home that I know for a fact is haunted or that is said to be haunted, like out the gate. You know what I mean? I lived above a funeral home, and I don't know what you believe, whether or not you're one of the 57% that do believe in ghosts or not. But nonetheless, we're talking about houses. It doesn't matter what they do. They're not getting them sold. There's a house, I forget where it is. They were giving it away. Flat out giving it away. It's a big old house. The grandmother had it moved. She ends up dying. The granddaughter inherited it. It's actually on land that is commercial. Like, they'd have to get it all rezoned. Costs a lot of money. So they're like, you know what? You can have it. Just take it. You can have it. You can have it. You can just have it. I don't know if you want that, but I'll find out where it is. And you can just have that if you want. Or what about the Fortress, the big foreclosure house? It's Christopher Mark, who's like a big businessman. He has this massive house. The castle was built on 75 acres for his daughter. All the movies that she watched growing up, of course, you know, the castle. Anywho, it is massive, and he got in a lot of trouble because apparently, allegedly, had a girlfriend living there and had a kid, but then he kicked him out on the street, and then he was going through a divorce, and then he was like having girls being hired out at 100. Nonetheless, you go into the basement, and then there's like some weird room that, you know, it's like 50 Shades of Grey type stuff. So it's not so much the haunted aspect that they can't get it to sell. It has like moats and it's pretty badass. But again, I don't know if you'd want that bad juju. I'd rather live in a haunted house than that one. Yeah, I still have not found, there's a family in Kentucky. So I am, been in the funeral profession for 13 years. My new single releases next Friday, by the way, the 12th of January. Monday it goes to radio, which, by the way, my single Yet is back on the charts at number 20 after Christmas. It's insane. It peaked at number 15, but it's at 20 now. So we'll see. It's been on the charts for over 10 weeks. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, the family in Kentucky. They own a funeral home. I read this story. I'm trying to find more information on the owner themselves because I would like to kind of get an idea. So this girl who's 35, who's my age, her family owns a funeral home still to this day and operates it, and she's had so many ghost experiences. She's not in the funeral profession. Her family still lives in the funeral home. She grew up in the funeral home. I want to find out who this woman is and like really dive into our stories and see if there's any similarities, because like if you have animals, they say that they're very sensitive too, and we have 2 little Maltipoos and they'd walk in the corner and just stare, or they'd bark, or you'd hear stuff like kids playing. I know there's a house for sale that used to be a funeral home. It's still for sale, by the way. If you want to buy it, it's $972,000. You both certainly buy it. Or it might be $792,000. I'm dyslexic. So if you want to take my advice on the price or number, you probably want to question that and kind of give a second glance at it. I'm actually in my late grandparents' house. This is my late grandparents moved here in 1989 or 90, I believe. And this house is the house that I grew up playing hide and seek in, and it's I mean, look at this beautiful trim right here. Look at that shandy. It's largely unchanged. It's been in this family for forever. My late grandmother just died last year, and so she's been deceased for 1 year. And they were putting it on the market. And I was like, no, keep it in the family. Let's keep it in the family. So just call me Mr. Squatter, you know? It's amazing. So that's what I'm doing. Just hanging out here. Nothing better to do on a Saturday than to talk to you all about places not to buy, but you want to buy. You can't buy this one. I mean, you could if you wanted to. Everything's for sale, but you can't buy it. Or you can have the Peterson's Folly, I believe. It's in Hampshire, England. England. It was built by some dude, and it's really, really weird. It's 14 stories tall, and he was obsessed with spirits, like summoning spirits, and he allegedly summoned a 17th century architect who told him to build this massive space in place, and to use concrete, but this architect from the 17th century didn't use concrete in his structures, so not really sure where that came from or how true or not true that is. But if you want to live in a house that has been largely infiltrated by pigeons and staircases until the 70s, I think somebody actually went back in and revamped it, you can most certainly do that. It's still for sale if you want to buy it. Price is $1 trillion. I'm just kidding. I think it's $11 million, $11,500,000. It's fine. Nothing too expensive at all. Like this, I bet you all could probably like smell this room. It has like the old wallpaper. Well, you can't see it on this wall, but all the other walls have this like lime green wallpaper. The color of this trim is the color of the cabinets. It's beautiful. The house is massive. It's like this big 2-story house. It's on the corner of two cross streets, and it has a great lot. And I remember growing up out front here, there would be always football games going on, and then the backyard, just running amok. And there's a laundry chute here. Every house should have a laundry chute. They should bring all those back. Like it's a must, really. And I love the stories here. Like I love the feeling. And that's the whole thing about the 57% of people who believe in ghosts, for instance. I talk about it all the time. You've walked into a place in space where you've been invited somewhere. The only way I can give you an analogy to understand is you've been invited to a party. You don't know these people. You're a +1. You show up and you either have this feeling of comfort, like you're like, oh, I feel accepted. Like I feel good. There's this positive feel. Or you feel a little bit of like heaviness, like not wanted, not accepted. It feels kind of blue. And I feel that goes with similarly to spaces and places. Being a realtor is gotta be a tough job. Like when you're buying a house, you feel like it's your house or you don't. Like you know what you're looking for, yes, but when you walk into a place in space, you're like, oh, that feels good. So imagine having all this weight of these houses, these mansions, they can't even give a freaking house away. Like there must be some bad stuff going. Or you have the realtor saying not haunted, $99,000, and the house could absolutely sell for hundreds of thousands because you walk 8 blocks from this one property and there's a house similarly constructed, that's the word I was looking for, and it's $300,000, $250,000. So what's the catch? Do you want to live in would you live in a mansion knowing that it was haunted? My answer is absolutely not. I have no desire to. I don't want any of that. I have enough trouble sleeping as it is. I don't want any of that stuff. But would you do it? No. Maybe you have, I don't know. It doesn't sound like it would be very fun. Like the little old lady, the sweet little old lady. I posted this in a short or whatever. Yeah, a short. That's the word. I posted this in a short. There was a woman who gave her house to her grandson. There were 8 grandchildren, and there was this one young man when she died, and he went into it. It was in disrepair, but he grew up going over there, and there were a lot of weird things that had happened, a lot of like heaviness, so to speak. And then this boy, now a man, found this chest. This is a true story, by the way. Like there are photos, there's documentation to prove this. This boy who's now a man, if you're following me, this man's mother, who would be the daughter of his grandmother, she was sent off a lot from the ages of like 9 to 13 to her friend's house for weeks on end and come back, and there'd be stuff on the floor that would look like melted wax. Never understood why. Come to find out, all these photos that were hidden in the chest that was locked away under the floor it depicted all kinds of like really messy, dirty, very heavy, ghostly stuff. And a lot of it is corroborated. A lot of it has evidence to show, wow, this isn't somebody just making things up. This is very gross. So my point is that house, like, no, you would never get me to live in that house, because this woman, by the way, when she was sending her daughter away, it was because she was having these, I don't even like to say it because it's so gross and heavy, you know? That's why being in the funeral profession, you get the sweet little ladies who've lived a beautiful life, who've raised about 65 kids, 1,000 grandkids, great grandkids. They do a lot for the community, they do a lot for their family, they're the matriarch, and then you just celebrate them, right? Traditional, traditional, you go to the church and then you go to the cemetery. There's a lot of beauty in that. And along the way, I don't know about what you weirdos did, but you all are loving the true crime, you love the ghost stuff. I mean, I'll post a video on here about the Paragon Road or whatever in Texas, and next thing you know, it gets thousands of views because some, train conductor gets he gets decapitated, and so now you got some headless ghost walking around with his lantern. That's now a street, not a road. I mean, not a train track. Yeah. I don't know. I see where you say, Jules, that you would take a house that's no, I don't want to. I just don't want that. I would say, I don't know what I would say. I don't know. I mean, if you knew it was haunted, you go in, you take ownership of it, and then all kinds of stuff just starts happening, you would stay? You'd be like, yeah, this is fine. I just feel like I've watched too many documentaries or Unexplained or Expedition Unknown or whatever the heck they're called. And I'm like, that doesn't feel too good, It doesn't sound like that'd be too fun. Like Ninja, the gamer, his house was haunted where he was upstairs trying to sleep, and he'd hear all this crazy music. He'd come down, all of his Bluetooth devices were off, and they call it the witching hour. It's like where you wake up at the same time all the time. It's alleged that happens a lot in homes that are heavy. That's my noise for heavy. I don't know. I just wouldn't want to do it. I feel like I'm hypersensitive to just things in general, not like woke or whatever you call it. I'm not like, oh, I'm sensitive. I'm saying sensitive in the sense of, I feel like if I'm not comfortable in a place and space, I don't want to be there. So I feel like it'd be all for nothing to just walk into this big ass mansion that I got for free just to pack my stuff up and leave again. Like, damn it, that was fun for 7 minutes. Yeah, I don't know. Do you all fall into the 57% that do believe in? Or do you fall into the other percentage that don't believe in? I don't know. That's a big percentage. Like this chandelier right here, this looks flat out like it's from a ghostly. This looks like it's from the Haunted Mansion in Disney, by the way. It's not. It's from my grandma's house. We go. Oh, Lord. Of course if I got a bad vibe. Yeah, I mean, it's not something that I'd want to stick around. Or maybe you'll become best friends with them. Maybe you'll find your next BFF. Maybe there'll be a Casper remake. And then it's, what's that guy's name? Like in Casper? I know it's Christina Ricci, but what was his name? Super Babe. Maybe you all will get that guy who's a ghost and you turn him back into a real young man and then you live happily ever after. What do you think? Think it's a good idea? I agree. Yeah. These always go all off the rails. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get on live. We're gonna talk about mansions that nobody wants to buy or get for free or for $99,000, and don't know why. And then end up talking about Casper. I can't help it. This is what I do. It's what I do. So I did realize that I always talk about you all being weirdos about like this true crime and haunted stuff, but I find myself, I'm always like, ooh. I was talking to my brother, and I'm gonna pick him up here in just a little bit, and he has such cool stories pertaining to when I lived at the funeral home, and then I would go and visit him at his house, and then when I would leave, like things that would happen to which I wasn't privy to them physically, like I wasn't there, but I heard the stories of after I left. My brother works swing shift, so he's a gas controller for a natural gas company, and he would hang out. Well, hey, Elizabeth from Scotland. We were just talking about Scotland earlier. It's good to have you. So we were hanging out later tonight, but he would tell me I would leave the funeral home, go and visit them, and then when I would leave, shit would just start kind of happening. And so what they say is it's pretty common, back to the girl that grew up in the funeral home in Kentucky that I want to find. Similar story. She'd go and hang out with her friends, and then they would have like things happen, not heavy, not dark, but like for instance, the cabinets in the kitchen would be open, or the drawers where the silverware, or the cup cabinet, or a chair would, like, not like a chair, like one of the, what are they called? Rocker, not like a rocker, but they're like a recliner rocker. It would move. My brother would hear people walking up and down the hallway. He's like, what the hell's going on? It's like 2 a.m, you know, because he's on swing shift. So he's trying to stay up to get to sleep, to get his schedule updated. But hearing those stories is interesting because apparently I'm just bringing little friends over from the funeral home and they're just hanging out and opening cabinets looking for something to eat, you know? None the wiser. I just lollygag around. But that apparently, allegedly does happen a lot. And I have closed up the funeral home more times than I can count. You go walk through the walls and halls and you shut off lights or blow out candles if they're Catholic, and you don't ever feel, I don't know, you don't feel so much dark or heavy. But think about the thousands of families that have come through a funeral home. Even a residence, like back in the day, the Victorian homes, these mansions that I'm talking about, like the one that's the Fortress, the one that was built by Mr. Mark, no telling if he's having all these parties, even if they're little weird 50 Shades of Grey parties. Before the 50 Shades of Grey party, there's still tons of people there, right? So they're bringing all of their energy, they're bringing all of their heaviness or happiness, right? And you think about that being a funeral home where people are coming to pay respects to a deceased person whose shell is reposing, and all of their timeline, but their 80 years, their 90 years, their 60 years that they've brought, that are being celebrated, they're being talked about, all those that have gone before them, there has to be something. You know, as someone who's faith-filled and I believe what I believe, whatever you believe, I meet you here, that's great. I think it's amazing that you're here and I'm honored, but it just makes sense. Why wouldn't it be? I mean, energy is a real thing, you know? I think they do too. I think they like to kind of, I don't know. It's not a matter of it's not so much an unfinished business. And people talk about spirits would be something that they would call dark, or I hate even saying the word demonic, which I would respectfully push back because I feel that something that's dark has that feeling of darkness. I've never felt that sense. Obviously, I'm not attempting to or trying to find that or seek it out, so thankfully good, but any of the quote-unquote experiences that I've had of being in the funeral home and walking into a room of a sweet little lady, so the next chapel and the next chapel, you have a sense of peace about you, or you feel a sense of comfort even in a way. So I don't feel that feeling is anything around darkness at all whatsoever. So that's a question. You know those questions so if you maybe you don't consider yourself a Christian or a faith-based, like that's what you define, but a lot of Christians, non-denomination, whatever, they'll say, when I get to heaven, that's one of the questions I would ask, and it would be ... Well, when I get to heaven, if I have the honor to earn that, I will say, can we talk about this ghost stuff? Because this is like, I made a career out of death care and musician and telling these stories and meeting people on social media. And I want to know, tell me, so I can put it to bed. And then I'll come back, then I'll haunt somebody else's ass, and then I'll prove that it's all right, and then everyone's boom. And then we put it to bed. And then everyone will buy these houses that are for sale that no one wants to buy because no one will be scared anymore. And they'll be like, oh, it's just Herbert in the back. He's just chilling. He's just sharpening his hatchet. Why is he sharpening his hatchet, guys? You have a list of questions to ask. Yeah, we all do. I think it's great. You know, that's another video all together. But I appreciate you all allowing me to get on here and ramble and talk about this stuff, because these are, oddly enough, topics that I get asked all the time. Why aren't people buying this house? Why don't people buy these houses? Why? Do you think it has to do with dark energy? Do you think it has to do with ghosts? Do you think it has to do with something being scared? Do you think it has to do with this or that? I don't know. But it sounds to me like a lot of you all would take a house for free, even if it is haunted. But you all are just more brave than I am. I won't walk through a haunted house that's put on by a local youth group. One time I did have a haunted house, just so you all know. I was 10 years old and in my backyard. It was amazing. I had a piece of broken fence. It was propped up, and I hid behind it. I had a mask on, and then I had some glow-in-the-dark monuments that were plastic. And then I had my little brother. So if I were like 10, he was 7. I stuffed his clothes with newspaper so he looked like a dummy. And that, my friends, that's a scary ass haunted house, right? Yeah, it was amazing. I felt like a million people came through too, but they didn't. It was probably just like my neighbors over and over to make me feel good. Yeah. Now you know. It's a good topic. You never know. And you find out quite a few. Yeah, it is. It's very interesting. I think that the past few years, what it's afforded us, because I believe that there's goodness. I believe everything is for good. I really do. I think for people who have positive thoughts, I think everything is for good, and you can find the goodness in it. So the past few years with the pandemic and the loss that all of us have experienced, what we have also been afforded is the opportunity to talk about that loss. We have felt welcome to talk about the grief and the sadness, the heaviness, the fears of death, or the things that scare us. And the social media platforms that we find ourselves meeting each other on, this is where we do it. And it's really cool that we're able to connect this way because all these conversations are happening. And the majority of the conversations are positive in the sense of like we're moving the needle forward. We're having profound conversations. We're not just sitting around, throwing dirt and rocks at each other. It's like, this is how I feel. And it's like, well, I hear you. I feel this. Awesome. And so I think that jokes aside with the true crime or jokes aside with the weird ghost stuff or the death, and I think it's because in some odd way it creates a really cool community. And if that doesn't resonate with you, then that's okay. But I really feel that that's why what we have is so unique and special. And that's why all those social channels are blowing up and popping off, is because they're like, yeah, I'm a little intrigued by this stuff. I'm a little interested as to, why. Or maybe you just like the story. The unknown is interesting. It's like that train wreck thing, not the guy getting his head chopped off, which, by the way, my actual late great grandfather, he was a conductor. He was on the Illinois Railroad, but it's interesting because the Illinois Railroad that owned it, he went from Paducah, Kentucky to Louisville, Kentucky and back every day, not Illinois. And it took him 16 hours each day. So I grew up on these stories, and I only tell you that because I was talking about how we like the train wreck. I don't know. This is my brain. Welcome to it. You're in my real estate, baby. Wipe your feet. The Middleton Cemetery, Indiana, supposedly haunted. There's a good story about it, but when I want to tour it, I don't see anything weird. But when you went to tour it, that's how it works. You hear all these awesome stories about all these things that happen, and there's all these corroborated stories, photos, videos even, multiple witnesses and their testimonies, and then you show up and it's just like, a dog barking. You're like, shit, this is awesome, that's great. It's kind of like when you go you're on a safari and you don't see an animal because it's the middle of the day and every one of them are sleeping because they're tired. They've been eating and running all night long. You're like, where are the animals? Well, they're doing what they do. It's what they do, guys. Quit being so bossy with these animals. Well, you're not gonna find me. Actually, they say that Louisiana is one of the most haunted places. Yeah, and then you have like Savannah, Georgia, very haunted. All these like really old up in the Northeast. Northeast is very haunted, like Plymouth, Mass, and all those places with the Salem witch trials, all that stuff. I wonder what those houses are like. Oh, that's the house. That's the house that I was talking about a little bit ago in Massachusetts. They can't sell that shit for anything. It used to be a a funeral home. I would not buy a funeral home as a home ever, just so you all know. I would buy a funeral home that was once a funeral home to put it back into a funeral home. If it went out of business and it was like beautiful and no one wanted to pass the torch or continue the legacy. If it was had good bones, I would consider that, but I wouldn't live in a funeral home as my just primary home and then not be a funeral home. Does that make any sense? They do get off a feeling that, yes, that's true. Some people, like, your feeling is your feeling. Like, you feel how you feel. And, like, it's interesting when people want to argue that. You're like, I feel uncomfortable. It's like, no, you don't. You're like, yeah, I do. Actually, I feel uncomfortable. It's fine that you don't think that, but these are my feelings. Yeah, I mean, some places are super, like, it's like a ride, like a roller coaster. Some people are like, yeah, let's do it. And other people are like, I don't want to go stay the night at their house, which I never wanted to do that anyway. You would remake it. Yeah, I would remake a funeral home. Like if it was previously a funeral home, it was closed down. There are so many really cool former funeral homes that need a ton of work to get them revitalized to be a funeral home establishment again. But they had so many cool bones, like, and especially like the Victorian style, which are super beautiful, but they're so hard to establish as a funeral establishment because no matter how big a Victorian mansion was back in the day, it didn't matter how wealthy you were, they didn't have closets. And if they did, they were like this big. They just didn't have a lot of storage. It was just all home. So converting all that space into a functional place for public, and then also having this off stage for the private staff to be able to perform their duties and efficiently do so without being obstructive to those who are coming to the home. It's tough, especially your plumbing and electrical. It's a nightmare. Plumbing is very tough for those Victorian homes. Nonetheless, there's your little history lesson on that. They didn't have the thought of everyone deserves to come through the front door mentality either. It was no fault necessarily to them. However, everyone deserves to come through the front door, and then you have these old Victorian homes, and the stairs are like this. Well, not everyone can navigate the stairs, so the next thing they would do is they would create this weird access in the back, like people were secondhand citizens, converting all that. And we had numerous projects that I've been a part of where I'm like, okay, we're going to create this everyone to come through the front door project. And it's been not all that to say, it's a shit ton of money. And I don't know if I would want to convert an old Victorian funeral home or home to turn back into a funeral home. But maybe not. In Iberia, I don't know what that means, but you're not going to Sally's house. It is. Yeah, don't go to Sally's house. It's screwy. I wonder how many Victorian funeral homes there still are. I don't know. It would be really good to see that. 136, Elizabeth, thanks for being here. We're gonna wrap soon. It's Saturday night, and you all spending it with me is amazing. And rewatching this, everybody, I appreciate it so much. I'm grateful for the works that we do together, the inspiration that it offers, and the songs that it creates. And I'm grateful for you all streaming and listening to the podcast and supporting like you do. It's super, super appreciate it. If you haven't subscribed right here, be sure to. Please, I would appreciate it on the YouTube. It's like, let's go to the target. Maybe share a video on the YouTube. I have a cool music video, just telling you all first, that's releasing on YouTube Friday. When the song comes out, I'm really excited about it. We're gonna call it a visualizer. Pretty awesome. And I really find it interesting that this is all it's coming up on the 2-year anniversary of this all starting to happen for me. And it was February the 26th. No, June 26th when I was starting the funeral profession. It was February 22nd. I'm going to find out what February date it was. The first video that went nuts. And then from there, here we are, almost 2 years later. And I hope that my showing up has offered you, if anything, a little encouragement, inspiration, excitement, entertainment, anything, if that passion to keep going for yourself and maybe do something that you love to do, or if anything, just educate, because I love what I do and I'm honored that you meet me right here. And if you all buy the mansion in Clifton, Tennessee, well, that's not it. That's not the one. That's the one that says they're not haunted. No, the Christopher Mark one, we can like fix the basement up so it's not like 50 Shades, and we can all hang out and have good parties and cool stuff. We can go live together. We can talk about cool stuff and have a drink. And I'm gonna go pick my brother up and talk about ghosts. I appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you.